Welcome back to MetaCast, everyone. I'm John,
Huh.
and we're going to be diving deep today with Maya
Hey, everybody.
into some rumors.
Yeah, there's been a lot of buzz going around about Sony jumping back into the handheld gaming market, and that's what we're going to be looking at today.
Yeah, we're talking whispers of a brand new device, maybe powerful enough to run actual PlayStation 5 games on the go. And of course, when we talk handheld gaming, we got to talk about Nintendo,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. The Switch has been a huge success.
Yeah.
So what could Sony do differently this time, especially given their past with the PSP and the PS Vita? What could make a new Sony handheld stand out,
Right.
especially to people who already have the Switch?
Exactly. And that's kind of what we want to figure out today. So let's start by looking back a little bit at the PSP and the PS Vita.
Okay.
They both had their moments, but neither one really took off the way that Nintendo's handhelds have.
Yeah, the PS Vita especially was interesting. I thought it had that beautiful OLED screen, some pretty innovative features, even touch controls before those were everywhere. But it always felt like it was missing that one killer app, that game that everyone just had to play.
Yeah, like the Switch has had, Animal Crossing or Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
Totally.
Things that you just have to play on the Switch.
Yeah. If Sony is serious about making a comeback in this market, they're going to need to bring something incredible.
Yeah.
They need to figure out how to replicate some of that Nintendo magic, and I don't know how easy that's going to be.
Especially since Nintendo has that formula down pat. They've got the portability, the exclusives, and there's Microsoft.
Right.
Are they going to enter the handheld arena too?
These reports about Microsoft working on some kind of prototype are fascinating. It really makes you wonder what would happen if Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft were all fighting for a piece of the handheld market.
Right.
Imagine the competition for exclusives, the innovation, and what it could do to prices.
Yeah. It would be kind of a dream come true for gamers.
Totally.
But, we probably should calm down just a little bit. Because at this point, it's all just rumors. We don't know for sure that any of this is actually happening.
Right. It's important to remember that these are all just prototypes. So far, they might never even be released.
Okay, but let's say, just for this deep dive, that Sony does decide to launch a new handheld HART. What do you think are the biggest challenges they would face?
Well, I think the first thing they need to figure out is the hardware itself.
Yeah.
If it's really going to be able to play these PS5 quality games on the go, it's going to need some serious processing power, and that comes with a ton of challenges.
Like battery life.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to be playing Spider-Man and have the thing die after an hour.
Exactly. And then there's heat management. Squeezing all that power into such a small device is going to create a lot of heat.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with that somehow. And on top of all that, you have to find a way to fit a decent-sized screen into a handheld form factor without sacrificing those amazing PS5 visuals.
Right. It's a lot of technical stuff to figure out just on the hardware side of things.
For sure.
But then there's also the software side. The games. What are they going to do to make sure there's an amazing library of games to make this handheld a must-buy?
Well, they definitely need to convince developers that this is a platform worth their time and effort. And the best way to do that is with a clear vision for the device, a strong marketing plan, and ideally some really incredible first-party titles.
Yeah, so it's not enough to just make a powerful device.
Nope.
They also need to make sure that there are people who want to play games on that device.
They have to build a whole ecosystem around this handheld. They have to show people why it's a better choice for playing certain types of games compared to streaming them to your phone or just playing them on a console.
Okay, so we've talked about the technical challenges of making a powerful handheld.
Yeah.
And the importance of having a great selection of games.
Yeah.
But what about the business side of things? How does this handheld fit into Sony's overall strategy?
That's where it gets really interesting.
We were just talking about how this handheld fits into Sony's overall strategy. It seems like they're trying to be on everything. Some PC games, mobile games.
Yeah, and that's a good question. Would this handheld be something that works with their consoles or something that competes with their consoles? Would it hurt sales of the PlayStation 5, or would it bring in a whole new group of people who don't have a PlayStation 5?
It's a tough call.
Yeah.
Nintendo's done a good job of having both a home console and a handheld. They made a special place for the Switch, and it doesn't seem like it's hurt their other platforms.
Yeah, the Switch really did find its own place.
Yeah.
But Sony's in a different spot. The PlayStation 5 is already really popular, and they've built this whole world around it.
Yeah.
Bringing in a handheld that plays the same games could mess that up.
Especially if the handheld is cheaper.
Yeah.
Could they make it a lot cheaper than the PS5?
That's the big question. A big part of why the Switch is so popular is the price. Sony has to find that perfect price. something that people will want to pay, but also something that doesn't make the PS5 look bad or make the handheld feel cheap.
Right. They can't skimp on the hardware or the games.
Yeah.
People expect a lot, especially if it's supposed to be as good as the PS5. And that brings us back to the reports.
Yeah, let's take a closer look at some of the details.
Okay.
Bloomberg was the first one to break this story, and they've been right about these kinds of leaks before, especially with Sony, and that it's supposed to work with the PlayStation 5.
So not like a standalone thing like the Switch.
Right, more like a companion to the PS5, like a really fancy remote play device, but one that can actually run the games itself.
So it's like an extension of the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, exactly. Not a whole separate thing. This way, Sony can offer a way to play on the go without going head-to-head with their main console.
And that helps them not worry about hurting PS5 sales, right?
Right. It's more like a bonus for people who already have a PS5, not a replacement.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. And it's probably a good way for Sony to see if people want a handheld without too much risk.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, the technical stuff, the business stuff.
Yeah.
But what about the people who actually play the games?
Yeah, what would make this a must-have for them?
What would make it a great experience for them?
Yeah.
For me, it would be the games, what can I play on this handheld that I can't play anywhere else? Are there games that really make sense on a handheld that use the portability and the features in a cool way?
Right. It can't just be the same PS5 games on a smaller screen.
Right.
It needs its own identity, its own reasons for existing. Like those mobile games, Pokemon Go or Fire Emblem Heroes. Those are huge because they were made just for phones. They use the strengths of that platform.
So Sony needs to tell developers to make games just for this handheld, not just take PS5 games and put them on the handheld.
Exactly. Games that are meant to be played on the go that use the controls in new ways.
And they need to make sure that this handheld fits in with the PlayStation world. Things like being able to move your saves between devices or share trophies, and maybe even going back and forth between the handheld and the PS5 without any problems.
Yeah, that would be awesome, especially for people who already love PlayStation, and it would make the handheld feel like a part of their PlayStation life, not just a separate thing.
And that's something that could make Sony stand out. Something that's different from the competition.
Exactly.
But we can't forget about Nintendo. They're still the big name in handheld gaming.
Yeah, for sure. No matter what Sony does with the hardware, the software, or anything else, they're still going up against the best.
And that's a tough fight.
It is. But if anyone can challenge Nintendo, it's probably Sony.
Yeah.
They have the money, the skills, the brand to make a difference.
It's kind of a David and Goliath story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Sony has surprised us before they've shaken things up.
That's true.
Maybe this handheld is their next big move.
Yeah. It really is exciting to think about all the possibilities, isn't it?
A new handheld could really change things, push things forward for portable gaming.
Yeah, totally. Competition is good.
Yeah.
Makes everyone try harder. And that's good for us. More choices, different kinds of games, better technology.
Right. But it always comes back to that question, what would make someone choose a Sony handheld over a Switch? The Switch is already so popular.
Yeah, that's the big one. It's not enough to just be kind of like the Switch. They have to offer something special, something different that makes people say, I gotta have that.
And that's where those little details you were talking about before really matter.
Yeah.
It's great that it can play PS5 games. That's a good start. But it needs more than that. Sony has to be creative and use that power in new ways.
Right. Like think about things that would make playing on the go even better. What if they use that haptic feedback technology from the DualSense controller, built it right into the handheld?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Or what about the 3D audio from the PS5?
Yeah.
Imagine how immersive that would be with headphones on. That would make it more than just a smaller PS5. It would be something totally new. And we can't forget about the controls. The Switch's Joy-Cons, they opened up a whole new world for motion controls and different ways to play.
Yeah.
Could Sony do something like that? Maybe use some of the cool stuff from the DualSense on their handheld?
The possibilities are endless. It's really exciting.
And then there's the whole social side of gaming, too.
Oh, right.
Could Sony make it easier for people to connect and play together on the go? Maybe like built-in streaming or a special place online just for handheld gamers. It's about making a whole experience, not just the games themselves. It's about building a community, making people feel like they belong.
And Nintendo's so good at that with the Switch.
Like
They've created this amazing community, this feeling of playing together. That's a big part of why it's so successful.
So Sony would need to find their own way to do that, build their own special community for their handheld. It's a tough job for sure, but like we said, it could be huge for them, you know?
Mm.
If Sony can get the hardware right, the games right, the whole experience right, and build a community around it, they could really change things.
They could make something that changes how we think about handheld gaming,
Yeah.
something that pushes the limits of what we thought was possible.
Yeah. And maybe it could even give the Switch a run for its money.
Maybe only time will tell.
Right.
But one thing's for sure, things are about to get a lot more interesting for handheld gaming.
And that's why we'll be keeping a close eye on this story, and we'll keep you updated on anything new that happens.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Sony's rumored handheld.
And until next time, happy gaming.